Greetings. I trust that you have been enjoying the Lord's presence and the Lord's blessing this week, and that you have been meditating on the reality of God's love. What a wonderful theme we have to think about. And today we're going to think about that theme from the perspective of the New Testament. Now I have chosen for the first passage that we're going to think about today, 1 John 4 verse 8. Let me read it for you. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. And this verse tells us, let me just emphasize that last phrase there, God is love. This verse tells us that part of God's essential character is that He is love. God, without anything else in existence, is still a God of love, because God is love. And this tells us that somehow, even without anything else existing, God must be able to express love. And that leads us very quickly to the doctrine of the Trinity, because it is the fact that God is triune, that there are three persons within the single being of God, that makes it possible for God to express love even when nothing else exists. Between the Father and the Son, the Father and the Spirit, the Son and the Spirit, there is love, and there always was love, even when nothing else existed. We find this expressed explicitly in John 17 verse 24, in Jesus' high priestly prayer, where he is praying for his disciples, the 11 who were with him then and all who would follow after them. And let me read for you John 17 verse 24. Father, I desire that they also whom you have given me may be with me where I am, to see my glory that you have given me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. And there we have a statement, quite clear and explicit, that God loved his Son before the foundation of the world. Before anything else existed, God the Father loved God the Son. And of course, it would be absurd to think that Christ did not return the Father's love, that he did not also love the Father. And understanding what we do about the Trinity, we can also understand that there must have been similar love between the Father and the Spirit, and between the Son and the Spirit. We see that even without anything else existing, there was within the being of God an expression of love between the persons of the Trinity, one for the other. We should just think about this a minute. What is this love? What does it mean? Well, it is the essence of it is relationship. It is the one pouring out his life into the other, receiving back from the other the life which he gives, and so enjoying the shared life that is possible through a relationship of love. It is a magnificent picture of relationship, of love, within the being of God, between the persons of the Trinity. And when we understand this, we can understand that the foundation of all human relationships, the foundation of all human love, is the nature of God. Firstly, as a triune God, where there are different persons and there is the possibility of relationship. But secondly, due to the fact that God is a God of love, so we, as creatures made in his image, are able to express and receive the love of one another. It helps us to understand, firstly, being made in the image of God, but it helps us to understand also the nature of the world as something that God created in order to pour out his love, especially into his human creatures who were made in his image. The love which is part of his being, part of his nature, he has poured into us, and he has created us with the ability to express that kind of love. Just a couple of applications of this that is good to think about. Firstly, we can understand now why the two great commandments are expressed in terms of love. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. And the second commandment, which is like it, you shall love your neighbour as yourself. Why does God express the two great commandments in terms of love? Well, it's because God is love and because He values and cherishes relationship, and a relationship of love so highly because it is part of His being. Secondly, in terms of implications, we should understand why God is willing to love us sinful creatures. It is not something that we have to prize out of Him, which He is unwilling to give. God is very willing to love us. Why? Not because we deserve it, but because love is part of His being. Love is part of His character, and when He expresses His love, He glorifies Himself because He reveals His attributes. And this gives us a tremendous ground of faith. Why should we ever hope that God would be willing to love us, that God would be willing to forgive us? Well, we have that confidence because God is love. Because love is an essential part of the character and the being of God. Let me invite you today to worship God as the God of love. Amen.